Yesterday or early this morning, Australian time, we had the swimwear round for Miss Earth. Now, I've interviewed, I think, three of the current contestants at this point, which is Friday, and I'm interviewing two more. Going to be interviewing Miss Earth New Zealand and Miss Earth South Africa. But one of the girls that I interviewed was Saartje Langstraat, who is Miss Earth Netherlands, and she had an absolutely phenomenal video. But what I wanted to raise the issue with you today is not that she made an amazing video, but sort of why I feel that she's done so well, because she's a pageant newbie. You have to understand, and she's doing well in the pageant hot picks now. I think that she'll do well at Miss Earth, whether she wins places or not. I think she has a very bright future in this industry. And she was a lovely young lady to talk to and to interview. One of those people who you feel their heart's in the right place and they really want to make a difference. But I want you to think of it in these terms. Are you using pageantry, or is pageantry using you? So are you using pageantry, or is pageantry using you? And it's similar to that idea of you should wear the dress shouldn't be wearing you. Because as much as sometimes people will say pageantry is for everyone, I disagree. I don't think there's any hobby, any sport, or any career that is going to be a fit for everyone. And one of the reasons I think Saartje has done so well, and as I said, she's registering in a lot of the hot picks from a lot of the people, the pageant bloggers around the world, is I feel that she knew what she stood for. She knew what sort of passions that she had, especially environmental passions, environmental advocacies, before she went into Miss Earth. And if you actually go back and watch or listen to the interview that I did with her, which I was just doing as I was driving around, she was told by, I think it was a friend or even maybe by her parents, that they looked at pageantry and went, "Oh, Saartje, this is really you. This is really going to suit you." And in fact, I asked her what she thought they meant by that, whether it was the advocacy, whether it was loving being on stage, whether it was being around people. And she said that she thought it was actually all of those parts, all of the things that you would think a pageant girl needs to be good at. It was something that was just, it fit her to a T. So when she entered Miss Earth, even though it's virtual, when she entered Miss Earth Netherlands, it was a very natural fit for her. So in that sense, she knows what she stands for. I mean, she's very young, but she has a strong idea, a much stronger idea than many people older than her, many years older than her. But she has a strong idea of what her passions are, who she is, what she stands for. And because of that, it's a very seamless transition. I'm not going to say it's without its challenges, but it seems for Saartje to be a very seamless transition to become a very effective and successful pageant queen, because she's able to use the things that pageantry gives you and is able to use it in a way that magnifies her existing message. It magnifies in a way her existing personality. She gets to show her personality to the world, her advocacies to the world, her message to the world. And it's not something that she kind of needs to make up. And this is what I mean by she's using pageantry. She's not letting pageantry use her. And I know many people, I've interviewed some of them, and this is no slight on them saying they're a bad person, but if you go into pageantry and you kind of don't have that idea as to who you are, you don't have that idea as to what you stand for, what your advocacies are, you haven't really found your voice, your life, let's say your career, it doesn't excite you, you're not interested in it at all. I'm not talking about how much money you make. I'm just saying you don't have a career that excites you at all. You've kind of settled for it. You don't have really any interesting hobbies. And by the way, just going out getting drunk every night, that's not an interesting hobby, or listening to music. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something that will wake you up early, that cliche of gets you up early and keeps you up late at night. And again, I'm going to use Saartje as the example. She loves fashion. She had, I think it was a grandma or mum, I can't quite remember, who got her into it, but she learned to sew at the age of 10. And one of the reasons I loved her swimwear round, her video, apart from the fact that you can just tell she's enjoying it, so there's that part, that element of being on stage that she really enjoys. My cat's going to jump down because cats love turning up as soon as you turn the video on. But aside from that, she made parts of her swimwear outfit herself from vintage materials. And that's because it fits her so well, because that's her. It's not like, oh, she learned how to sew for the pageant. She learned it 10 years ago. So and look, it can vary from system to system, obviously. So having an environmental advocacy, or Saartje's passion about fast fashion and how she wants to decrease the impact of fast fashion, obviously that lends itself very, very well to Miss Earth. But my overall point is, you want to go into pageantry, I'm not going to say knowing who you are, although that's part of it. But what I mean is that that's always evolving and changing. This idea of who you are, finding your voice, finding your advocacies, finding your passions, that's never finished. That's not a static goal that you hit and you go, okay, I'm never going to work on myself for the rest of my life. But if you go into pageantry, there's two options here. You go into pageantry with no idea who you are, not standing for anything, not having any advocacies or passions. Or you go into pageantry with at least a solid idea and you know you're making progress towards an even better idea. So you're really evolving and growing as a person. To me, those two are light years apart. It's night and day. And I'm not even saying that if you have no idea who you are, I'm not saying that you couldn't win a pageant. You could even win a major pageant. But the problem is, if you do win the pageant, if you do have that success and you don't stand for anything, it's very difficult to fake it, right? Maybe you were able to fake it for the pageant, for the day, the weekend, or the week. And maybe you kind of fooled the judges, or you just happened to get on well with the judges, or was beginner's luck, whatever it was. You said the right thing, you were there at the right time, and you won. You can fake it, you can get lucky to an extent. But if you win a title, and you, especially a major title, and you have an advocate, you have a reign of a year, and let's say you one of those people who want to take your reign seriously and actually do things for the year, not just win the title and disappear, you can't fake who you are for a year. Not if you're actually going to be out there doing work, doing your advocacy, doing charity work, or building your business. You can't fake who you are for a year in public. Yes, you can fake it on social media to an extent, but you can't fake it ongoing. And this is just an idea that I want you to think about. Am I using pageantry, or is pageantry using me? Is pageantry shaping, not necessarily shaping who I am, because that could be a good thing, right? And adding skills to your repertoire, like being able to speak well, being able to use social media well, public speaking, finding your voice, being able to present yourself well, those are going to be beneficial skills to you no matter what career path or advocacy or passion you decide to pursue in life. But if you're having to change who you are, or you're sort of having to fake aspects of yourself that don't exist because without them you feel like you can't have a chance at the pageant, those people, at least to me, they stand out, and not in a good way. And I know there's some confusion when I use the term pageant patty. And for me, I think that's really the textbook definition of a pageant patty. It's someone, when you sort of poke behind the surface, so you see this shiny surface, it can look all glam, all picture perfect, but then you poke behind it. And for me, that's normally with interviews, and you poke behind it and there's just kind of nothing there. That's what I mean by a pageant patty. And I know that there's this ongoing conversation that I've had with some people that, yes, some girls are very good at fooling judges and they might even lie about their advocacies or charity work. But to me, maybe because I've interviewed so many pageant queens, but for me, it's not very difficult to see through that facade. And I think for a lot of you, it's the same. I think you can tell, a lot of you, when someone is faking it. They might be really polished, but they're faking it, versus someone who, say, is not so polished, but you can just see that genuine authenticity, that genuine passion. And for me, and I say this as a judge because I just got, I've done judging now for Miss Earth, one of the biggest pageants in the world. But that aside, what I would be looking for, I would much prefer to choose the authentic person who has a genuine advocacy and maybe needs a bit of help with the polish, the presentation. I would much rather pick that person than pick the person who's perfectly polished but stands for absolutely nothing other than wanting the title because it makes her famous. And, there are people out there like that. And again, I'm not even saying that person doesn't deserve to win. I'm not saying that person is a bad person. I'm just saying from my point of view and in terms of where I'd like to see this industry go, I would much rather see us pick and choose, reward, encourage title holders and contestants who have that degree of authenticity and maybe just need a bit of help with the polish and the presentation skills. And I'd really like to see Pageantry help build that. So I would, for example, if you were in a week-long pageant, as an example, let's say I'd love for there to be presentation workshops, public speaking workshops, workshops on how to build your business, how to get ahead in your career, how to write a resume, how to speak well, how to present well, all that sort of thing, how to protect your mental health. All those skills, I would really rather see most pageants focus with their contestants on that. And maybe not just for the week, but maybe in the months leading up. It could be a 3, 6 month, 12-month personal development program. And I just think that would be so much a better use of time and produce such a higher quality of contestant, quality defined in the terms that I've just outlaid for you. I'm not saying one person's a good person, one person's a bad person. I don't make those sorts of judgments. But in terms of the people that I would like to see put on that pedestal, I think having that ongoing personal and professional development would be so much more useful than, I'm going to catch hate for this, the girls learning the opening number, right? Because, for example, at most pageants, probably a vast majority of the prep time is taken up with these girls learning the opening dance number. And look, I love the show. And I say this as having watched Universe earlier this year, and I loved it a lot more than I thought I would. And maybe that's because I had some people that I knew there, and I loved that aspect of it. But if you were to ask me, gun to my head, and you have a week at a pageant, Adrian, would you rather the girls learn how to do the opening number, or would you rather the girls learn how to create an amazing quality of life and get better at that? To me, there's no comparison at all. Does that mean we need to get rid of the opening number? I'm not saying that. Maybe you can teach it to them in a shorter period of time, or maybe you can get some professional dancers there to help out, whatever that. I'm not saying get rid of the show by any means, but I just want to give some thought to, again, this idea of using pageantry because it happens to fit who you are, your advocacies, your pageants, your passions, rather than trying to fit yourself into pageants when it's not really you. And I'm not saying that that's a terminal conversation. I'm not saying, oh my God, okay, you don't fit pageants, so you should never do a pageant. What I'm saying is, if you were listening earlier, go away and work on your life, because I think pageantry fits a lot of people. But I think the lowest common denominator has to be, you've got to have some idea who you are, what you stand for, and what you're passionate about. And again, that's not an end goal. That can be something you're working towards. But unless you've really had some clarity on that, and normally that clarity, I have to say, it often comes from trauma, like from bad experiences. Like when you get passionate about something, it's often because you've been wronged, or you've seen wrong in the world, or you've seen something that's unjust. Or it could come from a positive example, like with Saartje, with her family background. It could come that environmental advocacy and caring about fashion that came from them to a large extent. But I really encourage you to continually work on your life, continually work on what's my purpose here, what's my message, what am I passionate about, what do I stand for in this world, and at least work on that simultaneously as you're working on your pageant career. It doesn't work the other way. You don't start your pageant career and then go, oh, I won this title, what do I stand for? I think that's completely the wrong way around. I'd rather you take a year out of pageantry, to work on you, become a better, stronger version of you, defined in your terms, and then cycle back to pageantry. Because then even if you don't win or don't place, you're not going to look at that year as a waste of time, because you will be in a better position and you'll be a better person. You will have more to talk about. You'll be an more interesting person, and you're not going to need the pageant. And this is really important. You are not going to need the pageant for validation, which is by far the biggest problem I've seen with any of you who have, let's say, some sort of mental health issues or ongoing sadness, maybe even depression when you don't win the pageant or you don't place. It's almost always because you were looking at that pageant for some sort of validation. And the less that you need the pageant for that, the better position you're going to find yourself in. I'm going to leave it there. If you want to check out Saartje's interview that I did with her, it was about 2 weeks ago. I strongly encourage you to do so. You can go and look at the Miss Earth YouTube channel or Facebook page. Go and look at the swimwear video. She's under N for Netherlands. They're doing an alphabetical order by country. And, you look at her outfit, it's amazing. But my point is more that it's so who she is. At least that's my belief. There's no element there of faking. She loves being on stage. She's hugely passionate about fashion, and she made part of that costume herself. And I just really want to give her a shout out because I want to promote that sort of person competing in pageantry, because I feel very comfortable putting someone like that up as a role model versus someone who just has 100,000 followers, but they're just spruiking the latest product. You know what I mean. I'll leave it there, and I will speak to you again tomorrow.